don't know what's going on with it. I'm sitting on an earring. Hello.
Oh, hello. Are we functional on both platforms?
I don't think we're live here.
Okay. Okay, give us a second to finish getting everything set up.
Hello. To
Okay,
work
sweet.
on my needle felting.
So Ruth and I are going to hang out. Don't forget to be loud. Ruth and I are going to hang out with folks for an hour, and we're happy to answer whatever questions you have. Chat about whatever you're interested in chatting about. Sorry, I'm out of frame on TikTok. We're doing both YouTube live and TikTok live. Should I try and move this?
I was just gonna say,
tiny bit?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll try and sit back a little bit further to move my coffee. Hang on a second.
Oh. You
got water on yourself? Okay. How's everybody doing? Everybody doing all right? Oh yeah. Okay. So I just want to remind folks that in the chat, we want to be respectful to each other. Obviously this is a permaculture channel, so the ethics are earth care, people care, and fair share. So we want to try and think about those ethics and the way we engage with each other in the chat. Yeah. What are you working on, Ruth?
I thought it would be a good time to work on my needle felting project that I've been putting off for like 2 years, which is a dungeon meshy character, Chimera. I call her Farland because I read the pirated manga, but I think the official translation is Fallen. Because we were at a crafting event at our local coffee shop, and I busted out needle felting for the first time in ages because I just haven't had time to do it recently. But
hi.
I'll work on it.
Oh, hi from Big Sandy, Texas. Hi. I don't have anything to work on. I try and have things to work on live, but I am between knitting projects, and I'm going to make a sweater, a halibut sweater for myself, but I don't have the contrasting color yet, and I'm going to need it very quickly after I do the bottom hem, so I haven't started. It's going to be green with pink halibuts on it.
Is my phone in here?
I don't know if your phone is in here. Okay. So I don't actually have a project to work on at the moment. Okay, so let's see. Did I find the story on data centers here in Oregon? So I am aware that they're trying to put a data center in Hillsboro, Oregon, which doesn't surprise me. I haven't read up on everything about it. The west side of Portland, right, for folks who are not familiar with the Portland metro area, out Beaverton, Hillsboro way, there's a lot of tech. HP is out there. There's a lot of I want to say favoritism, a lot of receptiveness to big tech coming in. So to hear that they're trying to put a data center out there doesn't surprise me, but I need to read up on it, and then I'm happy to speak on it. I just don't feel informed enough yet. If you have an article or what have you that you think has been helpful, I'm happy to read it. Am I planning a knitting activity? Okay, so I made a couple of videos, and I've been posting on Blue Sky about it. Knitting Cult Lady is doing a big knit-in DC on the 8th of March, which I guess is International Women's Day. And she asked me if I would go and do that with her. For a number of reasons, I can't make it from Portland, Oregon to Washington, DC. Childcare obligations, work obligations, and I also think it's probably a better use of my resources if I stay here. So I would love to do something similar here. And I've been talking to a number of knitters and kind of knitting activists, craftivists in Portland. The problem that I'm running into is that is the Portland Yarn Crawl weekend, and that's the last day. So a lot of yarn stores or knitting groups have already committed to an event on March 8th. And so I'm trying to figure out if I want to try and do something anyway, just on a small scale in solidarity with the folks in DC, or if I want to try and do something on a different day. Here in Portland, Common Cause Oregon also does a Saturday knit-in every Saturday morning at the farmers market, the PSU farmers market. They're not doing one on March 8th because there is the PDX Yarn Crawl event that day. And I don't know if folks in other towns are doing a knit-in as well, or craftivism event as well. Oh, hi, Missouri. Hi from North Wales. Oh, Ruth and I were just talking about wanting to go to Wales.
Shout out to Wales.
Beautiful, yeah. Hiking. I would love to go hiking there. It's on my bucket list. Yeah, and I have like a group of friends that I knit with, and we've been chatting a little bit about what it would take to put that together, and reaching out to some of the friends of mine who are regular protesters down at the ice facility on Macadam. to see if it might be possible for us to come into that space and do a knit in there. I know that things are quite a bit spicier than they have been in the past, but now there is this moratorium, or I guess it's a TRO against using chemical agents. So it might be a little bit more welcoming and inclusive for folks who want to do that kind of a craftivism event right now. A little bit lower risk. Hi.
Hello.
Wow. Hi from the Gorge. Hello, on the Gorge. I heard that we're maybe going to get snow in Portland next week, although it's just going to be flurries that aren't going to hit the ground. We haven't really had a winter here at all. I just watched a video. Oh, okay. Feel free and interrupt me with other questions. Someone's talking about the hearing with Pam Bondi today. I've spent quite a bit of time watching that hearing. So earlier today, I had the Indivisible. They do a monthly call with all the leaders. So I had that Zoom call. I'd take my kid to the orthodontist, and I've been logging in to watch Pam Bondi's testimony in between. And it's been interesting. I don't know if y'all have thoughts, if anybody has seen some of her testimony and some of her engagement with members of Congress. She's been extremely combative. And I would say being a practiced, skilled attorney with a long record of engaging in a combative manner, she's very good at avoiding answering the question and turning around and attacking members of Congress. I think she called Jamie Raskin a fail lawyer or something like that. She's been pretty vicious. And to me, it seems like pure projection. It seems like she can't answer the question honestly and with integrity because she's under oath, right? And so she has to evade and she has to turn around and attack. She was wasting everybody's time. I completely agree with you. I do think she was wasting people's time. Well, she didn't have any choice but to appear. And so she's obviously not going to tell the truth. She's engaged in a massive cover up, right? So, oh, hi from Ames, Iowa. Hi. Hello.
Hello.
They just passed an ordinance to protect trans and non-binary people. That's awesome. That's awesome. My husband and I met in college in Iowa. We both went to Grinnell. So hello, Ames. Ruth's middle name was almost Iowa, but then that got shot down. Yeah. But her middle name is Merrill, which is the name of a park in Iowa. Actually, Merrill Park. That's where my husband proposed to me. So that's what her middle name is.
My middle name was almost Ketzel.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't almost. That was just a fun name that I could have named you.
It
should have been. Hi in Chicago. So there's folks from London, folks from all over. It's always so surprising to me. I envision that when I get on live, I'm going to talk to 3 people and they're all going to be in the Portland metro area. And there's folks from Virginia, from the UK, from Michigan. So someone asked what you're working on. Ruth is doing a needle felting project.
I'm doing a needle felted character from Dungeon Meshi. I started this like 2 years ago. One of my mutuals on TikTok. No, not TikTok. Instagram. Gosh, I don't remember her name.
What's the character's name? I'll look it up.
Fallen or Farlin, Falin.
Okay.
Fallen Troden.
Okay.
Oh, well, one of my needle felting mutuals online.
I don't know if you can see what that looks like.
Oh, yeah.
That's what she's making.
Mm-hmm. It's going to have a person on it. One of my mutuals made a huge needle felted version of this. I started mine first. I didn't copy her idea, but hers is going to be much better.
And it's got wires and it's got...
Yeah, it's got... so it's not necessarily posable, but it will be a little bit unstable without what it's already kind of unstable. It's kind of an experimental thing. I've never really made anything big before. Usually I make really small stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Oh, you're needle felting a cosplay. That's really cool. I've thought about needle felting like a fursuit head before. I don't know if anyone's done that. I know like people have concerns over non-foam fursuit heads growing mold, but I feel like you could make a wearable mask that wouldn't get moldy.
I think you could. Oh, hello. There's folks from Germany, from Baden-Württemberg. And someone said hi from St. Louis. Ruth was born in St. Louis. She was born at Barnes Jewish Hospital in St. Louis.
That's right.
We used to live in University City before we moved here. My husband went to graduate school there. One of his 3 rounds of graduate school was in St. Louis. At Albany, Oregon. Hello. Oh, working on a craftivism group there. That's awesome.
Shout out.
Yeah, shout out. Someone said that it looks like a griffin, a little bit like a griffin. Your thing that you're
Yeah,
making, yeah.
kind of. It's like this part is a dragon and this part is a bird, so sort of like like a hippogriff.
Oh, someone from the Seattle Beacon Food Forest. Hello. Hello. I actually ended up this is the first time ever I hired a local company to come help me prune all my fruit trees because I had been so busy doing this that I did not get around to all my winter pruning. So they helped me take back my figs and a couple of other trees as well. And that was super, super helpful. I still have a couple of apples in the front yard and a quince and a couple of plums that I need to prune. I need to do plums on a really dry day here because they're so prone to getting bacterial and fungal issues if you prune them when it's wet out. But I'm definitely behind on my food forest pruning. I do have pawpaws. I have 3 pawpaws. They're all Peterson improved pawpaws. I have a Susquehanna, a Rappahannock, and an Allegheny. And I don't prune my pawpaws at all. Unfortunately, what was it, 4 years ago when we had some repairs done on the house, one of the painters accidentally broke the top off of one of my pawpaws, which just, pawpaws are a pyramidal tree, and if you break off that central leader in the middle, it will never recover. So you lose that beautiful pyramidal shape, and then it becomes like that because you've broken that central leader, but it still produces tons of pawpaws.
R.I.P.
I'm somebody who really loves pawpaws. My grandpa in Indiana, we called them Indiana bananas, and we would go hunt for wild ones. They are not native to Oregon, so it has been a process babying them to get them to establish here and then produce fruit. And then I do have to hand pollinate them pretty well to get good fruits. They are fly pollinated, so some permaculture people hang a bag of rotting meat in their garden on their pawpaw trees to try and attract more flies. I am not going to do that to my neighbors, so I go out with a paintbrush and I hand pollinate all of mine.
Catch more flies with chum.
That's right, exactly. Okay, so folks keep asking me if I'll do collaborations with people. I need to. There's actually a couple of folks that I owe collabs to. I've never done that before. I would love to do lives and chat with people. I'm still kind of figuring out how to do live a little bit.
You did do a live with Priya.
I did do a live with Priya on pre-existing condition, and that's the only one that I've done. But I definitely would love to do collabs, not just on political things. I would love to do collabs with permaculture people, especially people. Maybe like 12 people would watch the live, but I would love to nerd out on fruit cultivation, especially trying to push the limits of your system and growing more unusual food crops. Yeah. Do I listen to the mamas and the pawpaws? That's hilarious. So people keep asking, I'll just keep telling so you don't have to look up. Ruth is needle felting, a character from Dungeon Meshi.
Yes.
Just for fun. And I'm not doing any knitting because I don't have any knitting projects. And I'm at a place in my sewing projects where I have to use a sewing machine or do a bunch of hand basting. Knitting Cult Lady, yes, we should do a collab. We should do a collab. I would love to. I would love to do that. Put it on my list of many things to do that I have to get around to. Actually, did the end of last year a form, and I asked people to give me feedback. And one of the things on that form was, could you tell me what kinds of things you'd like me to do more of in 2026? I think I got 700 responses, which was way more than I expected. And I have all of that data. The top 2 things that people wanted me to do were to do a podcast with Ruth and Bee. Bee's my other daughter. And the number 2 thing was to do long form bread tube style content, like hour long or hour and a half long deep dives. Because I feel like so often in my I couldn't even hope to be Harry. The thing about the shorter style videos that I make that are short enough to put on TikTok is that I'm often skimming over all of the details. So my notes will be like this long and I leave out all the details. And then what I end up doing in a lot of my YouTube videos is dropping like 10,000 links. And I'm trying to decide, should I turn those into Substack posts? Should I do longer videos? Because I feel like I just skim so much of the information and I would love to get into the weeds a lot more. So yeah. Are you knitting melt the ice hats? I bought the pattern for the melt the ice hat. I don't have any red yarn. So I have to go pick up some red yarn later this week, and then I will knit some of the melt the ice hats. But I did buy one.
That's honestly shocking. You don't have a kind of yarn?
I don't have a kind of yarn. So I have this dresser behind me, which is a shrunk from Germany. The top half of that is full of my sweaters, and the bottom half of that is full of yarn and knitting patterns. my laptop here is sitting on 2 boxes of yarn because I don't have a desk, and this room is really small. My room's really small. And then upstairs, I also have a dresser full of drawers of just yarn and fiber. So I have a lot. None of it is red.
I guess it's mostly like earth tones.
Yeah. I have a couple of friends who like to give me yarn. So I frequently will get whatever is left over after they finish projects. And then there's that feminism vest that I wear. That's like odds and ends balls. People give me odds and ends. So I have a little bit of this and a little bit of that, which is great for color work, but none of it's red. So
I'm sure anyone who's known a knitter or crocheter is familiar with, do you want any of my extra yarn?
I was actually thinking about whether or not there could be a place, I don't know, maybe this is a terrible idea, but like at the local coffee shop, I was thinking, wouldn't it be nice to have like a little corner and I could bring a bunch of my extra yarn and donate needles?
Library?
Yeah, like a little yarn library, and people could just
nice.
sit and foster, conversations and lingering at the coffee shop. I should ask Lily about that if she'd be interested, because I have yarn that I'm not going to use that people give me. A lot of shops are sold out of red yarn. I know. And unfortunately in Portland, a number of yarn shops have closed over the last couple of years. So there's more limited choices.
Spin some.
I could spin some.
I
could spin some.
I don't know. This
3 spinning wheels is not too many. And I got them all used off of Craigslist. So that's not too many.
Not enough. And I'm going to use it though.
You are going to use it. That's true. And I don't actually like spinning merino. This is merino and I think it's the worst yarn to spin. I hate spinning it. Unraveling thrift store sweaters. Yes. Am I getting my office spelled? Gosh, y'all. Okay. First of all, thank you for all of the questions and comments. I'm trying so hard to keep up. So I have a contractor. I have cleared land in my backyard. I actually had to remove an apple tree, which is kind of killing me. I had to take out my Ashmead's kernel apple tree, and I will be grafting and putting in a new one next year in a different place, because Ashmead's kernel and Cox's orange pippin and Hudson's golden gem are my 3 favorite apples, and I didn't want to lose any of them, but I had to take one of them out. And then I had to get the plans approved by the city. My original plans were it was too close to the property line, so I've got to move it in a little bit, and that means taking out a plum tree, and that's not going to be a problem because it's a Shropshire damson, and they put out a ton of suckers. So I'm going to dig up the tree, which is probably too unwieldy to transplant, but I'll take a couple of suckers and put them in another part of the garden, and then I'm building like a little she shed studio so I don't have to film in my bedroom and get interrupted 20 times a day. And I worked with a local contractor that came highly recommended by a friend of mine who's an architect, and he was very reasonable. He's working it in between his other projects, so the timeline's a little bit slower, and so it may take a little longer to get done, but hopefully I will have a quiet space to work in, and then my kids can, do their thing, and I won't get interrupted 20 times a day. A fruit tree dying is the worst. It's terrible. I hate having to take out fruit trees, especially like when I intentionally have to do it. Norfolk russet. Oh, don't tempt me, because I don't have room for any more apple trees. And I feel like I'm somebody who has a propensity to collect and collect and collect.
We have an obscene amount of trees for the amount of land that we have.
We do. Yeah.
Or we have.
Well, and I pared it down. So at the height, 4 or 5 years ago, I had 46 fruit and nut trees, and we're on a 1/4 acre. And the only nut tree we had, by the way, was a filbert, and a squirrel planted that. And then also I included, it's really filbert. And then across the parking strip, my next door neighbor had a walnut. So we also had access to walnuts, and that's too many. So I took out a number of things. I took out 2 quince trees. I've taken out some plums. I did take out my apricot. I've taken out a mulberry. So I've definitely pared back. It's too much food. Even now it's too much food. I'm thinking about taking out one of my persimmons. I'm not taking out any of my pawpaws though. The amount of work I had to put into getting those to maturity to actually bear fruit, I'm not taking any of them out. Plus I think they're gorgeous. I'm nervous about my Honeycrisp. I had a Honeycrisp when I took it out. She's kind of sideways in a snow. Oh no. So the Ashmead's kernel apple tree that I just took out, when it was, about 2 years old, my kids were all little, and our yard was a place where, so there's my 4 kids, and then behind us lived 3 little boys, and then kitty corner to us lived 3 other little boys, And they would all run around as this giant pack, and they were frequently in our yard. Oh, and on the other side lived two kids that were the same age as Ruth. And they would run around as a pack. They would climb the fence. They'd be in our yard. And one of those boys, they just have lots of energy. He snapped my Ashmead's kernel tree in half, and quite low above the graft, maybe about 18 inches above the graft. And I wasn't too cheesed. I didn't have a lot of the correct materials to help that tree. I just put it back up. I cleaned the dirt out of the wound and I duct taped it, and it recovered, and it lived all the way until I just had to rip it out a couple of weeks ago. So you never know. I was really surprised. I guess it still had enough of that intact cambium that I was able to put it back together and just duct tape it. Healed up. Big ugly scar, but it worked. Farm to Tabor did a really great video about how Honeycrisp don't really want to be alive. I love her content, by the way. I think she's fantastic. I think Honeycrisp apples are not even the best apple out there. If you want an apple, I think that is sweet and has a really good honey flavor, I think Hudson's Golden Gem is much better. It very much has this honey kind of overtone to it. And they're really big, beautiful, yellow russet apples.
I was an apple connoisseur as a child. I probably ate like 6 apples a day. And still, despite it all, my favorite are Red Delicious. I've tried every apple, and Red Delicious is the best. I'm one of those freaks that keeps Red Delicious the most popular in like school lunches and hotel breakfast bars.
Don't talk to me.
So you guys,
it's my great shame that my daughter's favorite apple is Red Delicious. Someone said Spartan apples and Liberty. I have a Liberty apple tree. It is on super dwarfing rootstock, so it's only about 3 feet tall, and it's tucked in under one of my mulberries. And I think they're beautiful apples, and they have a really good crisp flesh, much better than Red Delicious.
Sorry, well, if you get a mealy one that's out of season, it's not very good, but one that is right.
Oh God, I can't with you. The other thing about growing apples, right, is you have all the different pollination groups. And so it's a real pain because you find an apple that you really like, and it's like, oh, my other apple trees are not in the right pollination group. So now I guess I gotta add another apple tree. That's sort of a problem that we've had. Yeah. Someone said Red Delicious apples are garbage, and they are absolutely correct. Yes.
I think you guys just are having
Ruth, you're kind of getting ratioed. People are not vibing with what you're saying.
More for me.
Someone said I have a healthy avocado tree in my house grown from a pit. Oh, that's awesome. It goes outside. I don't have any avocados.
I had a pet one.
You did have a pet one.
I got rid of it because I had no space and I had to get more rescue orchids.
We do grow citrus in a pot. We've talked about whether or not we would grow. I really like calamondins because I really like to make marmalade, and those grow well in a pot. But we have Meyer lemon trees. Sometimes you have triplet. Yes, I know. Why are apples so difficult like that? I found that for here in Portland, you would think there would be enough other people growing apples, or enough like crab apples around that you would get good pollination. And I found that for some of my friends in other neighborhoods, that's not been true for them at all. It's true with cherries, though. My cherries are very much heavily pollinated. All of my neighbors around me have cherry trees, and so it's not an issue for me at all. How much land do I have? We have a 1/4 acre, including the footprint of the house. So we don't have very much land at all. My whole front yard, side yards, backyard are all food growing, except for the place where I'm going to be putting a studio so that I can have a place to work. Our house is really small, and the basement, we put an egress window in there. So the boys have the basement, which is only a 2/3 basement. There's a name for that.
Small basement.
It's not, I was going to say, it's not like a Michigan basement, Pittsburgh. It's got a Midwest name in it when you have a partial basement with a high wall. It's like a dugout basement. Anyway, and then upstairs was an attic that they finished in the 1950s. So the girls' rooms are up there. Obviously, only Ruth lives here. And it's not well heated up there. And it's definitely an attic.
There's no heat.
It's cold. And then also our craft room is up there. I have my sewing machines and store all my yarn and fiber up there in that part of the house. But the house is really small. It's not a daylight basement. It's I'm going to look it up. It's got a name. The basement, so the house, our house is 1922 fixer-upper. It's really still very much a fixer-upper. the house had a front sun porch and then a back laundry porch and another back enclosed porch. So those areas are not included in the footprint of the house that's not got a basement. And then they built the house first and then dug a basement out later. And it's just two-thirds of the house. Yeah.
So it says I planted 30 trees, including pawpaws, and then moved on before the pawpaws bore fruit. R.I.P.
It's so hard in permaculture. Thanks guys for letting me talk about permaculture, by the way. I thought we were going to talk about politics the whole time. This is just making my day. For me, when people ask, like, what should I do first if I have a new property, I'm always saying, well, first of all, figure out what you like to eat, how much time you're willing to put into the garden. But as soon as you possibly can, plant your fruit trees, because some of them take 5 years. Persimmons could take 7 to 9 years to start bearing fruit. My pawpaws, I think some of them took 6 years. One of them took 7 years. So you have to invest really early. And unless you know you're going to be there, sometimes you are gifting future homeowners all of those trees. But it's still, I think, worth it to plant them young, very young, when they're cheap, right? Get a little whip, plant them when they're young, and then give them that time to get established. We will listen to you talk about anything. Thank you. That's oof.
Do you have a preference for apples to make applesauce? I don't know. We haven't made applesauce in a long time.
We don't. Well, so here's the thing. I think my Ashmead's kernel apples and the Cox's orange pippin both make very good applesauce. I think there are better varieties than that, but I don't grow them. What we actually prefer, and I tend to make a lot more of, is pear sauce. I think it has a better flavor, and I like the texture better. And then we make a lot of plum. I have a lot of plum ketchup, a lot of chutneys, things like that. Yeah.
Plum ketchup, by the way, goes so good with Indian food. I didn't know that it wasn't Indian food. I thought it was supposed to go with it.
Well, that's good. It's underrated. I think plum ketchup is extremely underrated. And when you have as many plum trees as I do, you end up plum ketchup, you can just cook down so much. So for me, for our property, I don't have room to grow a lot of annual veggies. And so making tomato ketchup is not really going to work. I freeze a lot of tomatoes. I do make like a lot of salsa and a lot of stewed tomatoes, but I don't grow the quantity of tomatoes to cook down and make ketchup. But I sure have like bags and buckets of plums, and so it's really easy to make plum ketchup.
Someone said, what is plum ketchup? It's just a type of ketchup. It used to be that there was ketchup made out of all sorts of fruits. Now it's just tomato for some reason. That's the one that really caught on. But plum ketchup is actually older than tomato ketchup. Someone said Indian food like Indian tacos. Indian food like food from India. I think just like Indian food and Indian curry goes really well with plum ketchup.
Well, so right, a ketchup is basically like a chutney, but then pureed, right? So it's smooth texture. So you can make it with any fruit or veggie. I really like plum ketchup because it thickens so nicely and it has that acidity like tomatoes. So it's got that sharpness that you want. So it's got onions and garlic and, whatever spices you want to put into it. And then you cook that all down with your plums and it forms like, it's my favorite. Okay.
Good.
Yeah. Pear sauce is pear sauce pureed, like, yes, just like making applesauce, but you just use pears instead. I started making it so for years and years we were living on the margins, and we participated in an organization in East Portland that basically is like a food bank, but you had to buy a membership. So you had to volunteer every month. And then also you had to pay to help contribute toward the electrical bill and the insurance for the warehouse and the walk-in freezer and the refrigerated room. And so it wasn't really a membership. It was like you were helping contribute to all of the basic utilities. And then you had to volunteer there as well. And every year they would have farmers in Hood River who would have extra crops that the market had gone too low and it wasn't worth them. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Cricket. Thank you. Ruth's I'll send Ruth to go get her. So the farmers, like the market would fall and the price would be too low for them to be able to hire somebody to go pick all of these. So, okay, well, why not ask folks who are struggling if they want all of this free food? And so we would drive out to Hood River and would pick pears, or some folks would pick cherries. And then in exchange for you picking thousands and thousands of pounds of fruit for this food bank, you could take home a couple 100 pounds of pears. So I would take home these, big 60-pound boxes of pears. And then It was too much to make just canned pears, so I ended up making pear butter and pear sauce. And that's when we found out we really preferred it to applesauce. Will you go grab her? What would you? I know you like
apples
applesauce.
on the top.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, kid.
Nothing will work good.
ICE agents getting tarred and feathered and attacked in Italy. It's interesting to me. I've only seen one story about what's happening to ICE agents in Italy. I think that is something they're trying not to cover very much here. Thank you to all of the folks in Italy who are in solidarity and being willing to protest. Our pantry gets fresh food donations from local farms. Yeah. So I ran a gardening program here, and then there were a couple other locations. Actually, before we bought our house, I ran a gardening program for this food bank in somebody else's yard. And then when we bought our house with the land trust, then I moved that project here. And so we had volunteers in my yard 2 or 3 times a week for years picking produce. This is Martha.
I woke her up from her
She was sleeping. She looks real cranky.
She's grumbling. Martha, your nails. Your nails are covered.
She needs a groom. She's going to get groomed.
Her and Paula both. Oh, Martha.
Yeah, so Martha, so for our poodles, we have 1 poodle left now. I've always done all of the grooming. It's much more economical, right? Because poodles typically need a haircut every 3 to 6 weeks, and it's very expensive if you don't do it yourself. I can't groom this dog. She seems like a lump right now. She seems...
You try to touch her nail, she screams at you.
You get the clippers out anywhere near her, and she's just like full on panic. So I have to take her to a groomer. Because she is part poodle, so her hair will just grow and grow and grow and grow. She doesn't really shed. Yeah. Girl with the dogs. I don't know who that is, but I'll check them out. Maybe. Oh, is it a groomer? Will she groom Martha for me? Okay. Let's see. Yeah, no, I don't really have freckles. I have bad rosacea. My face is really red. I don't know if you can tell. The TikTok filter is a little bit overexposed. I don't have eyelashes either. I don't know if you can tell that. When you have autoimmune disease and it kills all your eyelashes. Collaborate with Knitting Cult Lady. I would love to. I'll talk to Danielle about it. We're actually in a chat. I don't know if people know, a lot of creators are in like signal groups and chats with each other. And I'm in a couple of different ones with social media creators, and they're all really supportive. We try and share stories and resources and encourage each other and just be a general support to each other. It's been really, really good for me. Brian ODC, I don't know if anybody follows him. He started the chat that I'm in. He is an attorney in DC, and he has really good, he has really good content around constitutional law. Do you need to go take that? Okay. So he started that chat. It's a really good support group. I just feel really encouraged, and it's good to be able to talk with other creators who are experiencing the same things you're experiencing. Like, how do I decide what stories to cover and what not to cover? Martha's, sorry. And also just kind of commiserate a little bit about the experience of trying to do this job, right? And work with the platforms that are all terribly exploitive. So as an American Zoomer, how do I not go mad with envy over Scandinavians and Europeans having better lives? Especially if they have a high barrier to entry for migrants. Okay. This is something that Ruth and I talk about quite a bit. Right, because Ruth speaks German, and she's talked about going and woofing abroad in Germany, and so we've looked at the healthcare, and we've looked at the cost of rent and things like that. So the question was, how do you not be jealous of Scandinavians or other Europeans and their seemingly higher quality of life? And I was saying, when we were looking at you going to Germany, we were looking at like how low the rent is compared to here, and how affordable the health insurance is compared to here. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, in terms of Scandinavia specifically, there was a family in one of our homeschool groups who had lived in Scandinavia as homeschoolers and then had recently moved to Portland after living there for like 5 or 10 years with their kids. Mm-hmm. But they were, I believe, Hispanic, and they said that contributed to, they felt like Scandinavia was very antisocial. Or at least antisocial to them, or like they just felt like there was not a good sense of community. Like there was good like safety nets and a lot of like good policies that were really helpful for the community, but they felt like people in general just were, I don't know, They said Americans don't really understand that the culture is very different and that it might not be a good place to raise your kids, especially if you're a person of color.
I think that's a good point. I think it's easy for those of us who are really white to think about going to Europe, and I also think too there's that element of the grass is always greener, right? When I went to Finland, first of all, everybody mistook me for being Finnish. Like literally every Finnish person thought that I was Finnish. At the time I had hair down to my waist, and I'm very tall and I was very thin at the time. And so I think everybody, I don't know, I projected Finnishness, and I loved Finland. I probably could have stayed there forever, but I also was viewing it as a tourist, right? I was there with a college choir. And so it's really easy to get that perception that like, this is really idyllic, and so many things about this culture are superior to our culture, but that's just that kind of tourist view.
No, I've never been to either of those places, but just based on what I've heard Finland is more friendly than I think Sweden, which is where those people lived. I would love to visit Finland. I'm a huge fan of Moomin, Tove Jansson works.
Oh, I could take you. We should go visit. We should go visit. I would love to go back to Helsinki and to Turku. Yeah. I really enjoyed it.
One of our neighbors is from
Finland, yeah.
And she says everyone there speaks like 5 languages. So
they do.
We talk in German sometimes. I'm not perfectly fluent, and she hasn't spoken it in like 40 years, so we're on a good level.
You guys, when we're out on a walk, Ruth will run into our neighbor. She's in her late 70s, I think, and they'll just stop and they'll just start talking in German. But her German is like very Finnish.
Yeah, there's definitely words she pronounces different.
Yeah, and then you've only had 3 years, and so you guys, anyway, it's just really cute. They meet up and then they chat with each other, and I just stand there and I can pick up like every 15th word. Yeah, people share how different German culture is. I'm a little bit reticent because, right, so my great grandparents emigrated here from Germany, and my grandma, is still so much infusion of like German parenting and German culture into how my grandma was and how my dad was. And then we lived in Germany when I was a kid. And I think my kids would struggle culturally very quickly if we tried to move to Germany. It would be very, very different for them. I think I would struggle. Maybe actually.
It will be better now that most of us aren't little kids. I feel like it's not very fun to be a small child in Germany.
Someone said, I'm so sorry, you guys, Rabbit, my eyes are so bad I can hardly read. I don't know if y'all, when you see the chat, if it looks the same as it looks to me. People's names are in much lighter font than their actual text. And it's so hard for me to read. Someone said they're trying to make it financially impossible for us to leave. Okay. I have thoughts on this because I think there's so many layers to it. And I think also, not to swing it around to politics, we were talking about permaculture for so long. I'm going to make it about politics.
Let's swing it back.
Okay. So looking at this new iteration of the SAVE Act, I don't know if anybody has read up on how they're trying to bring the SAVE Act back, but they've made it so much worse to be a voter ID law where you have to bring your birth certificate and your passport and or to vote, and that the real ID would not count as legitimate identification at the polls. And I've been thinking about this when they first rolled out the SAVE Act. First of all, right after Trump got elected, everybody in our family who did not have a passport, we went and got them a passport. Like immediately. And I know that most people don't have the ability to do that. And my passport was going to expire in less than 2 years. So I did an early renewal on mine. So that meant for our family, I think it was like $1,000 for us to get our passport. It was a huge chunk of change.
And they said we got in like right before a huge line came up. Like if we hadn't done it then, it would have been months and months.
Yeah. So you know what? Your mom's on top of it. So I was like, we have to get an appointment. And it also required us first for a couple people in our family, like my husband, sending off for new copies of birth certificates, right? So there's the $25 per birth certificate. Then there is the hundreds and hundreds of dollars for your passport. That's the reason that fewer than half of all Americans have their passport. I think it's 42% and upper class Americans, overwhelmingly like 80% have their passport. And so it really is a socioeconomic disadvantage. Passports are very difficult to get. They're very expensive. You have to be able to have your birth certificate, which also is expensive and onerous.
They're supposed to give you your birth certificate back the majority of people that I've talked to that have gotten their passport in the past year, they will not give it back.
They lost George's. So when we did George's birth certificate, so if you have a child under 18, it goes to a different office, right? Because their passport's only valid for 5 years. So they're supposed to mail you back the birth certificate. They lost George's. It was a whole back and forth. And they did send me a thing and said, if you pay to get him a new birth certificate and send us the receipt, then we'll reimburse you. So I got George a new birth certificate, but I haven't gone through that reimbursement process to know if they would ever.
It's such a hassle.
Yeah. So in terms of, sorry to make that a really long-winded, I'm so long-winded, y'all. They are trying to make it hard to leave the country. They're also just trying to make it hard for you to have proper identification to leave the country. And then they want that onerous, difficult to achieve identification to be required for you to vote. Like, it's the worst kind of voter suppression. Yeah, I think, and also, of course, if we're speaking about someone talked about Ames, Iowa, protecting trans rights, right? Think about how they have changed your ability to get a birth certificate, or excuse me, a passport. You can't have the gender that you are if it's different than what is on your birth certificate. So, and then also they limit it to two genders.
If you're a married woman, you'll have a different last name.
That's right. I think too, I had to do FAFSA for my kids, and it's the same thing with FAFSA. They've changed it. When Ruth first applied for FAFSA, they had a whole lot of different options for your gender identity, and now it just says male or female on it because, there's a cheaper passport document available. So there's a passport card, and that's only good for traveling to Canada and Mexico. So I would encourage folks to get the full passport if you are considering having it. Yeah. Okay. Don't change your name. Yeah, I love my husband to death, but I regret my last name is actually hyphenated, but I regret changing my name. Heard about a passport card. Yeah, so again, the passport card is only good for Canada and Mexico. So if you want to go somewhere else, you'll need a full passport, and it's worth just getting the whole thing. I think if you plan to frequently travel to Canada or Mexico, then the card is handy dandy for that. But I would say as an addition to your regular passport. So when we look at people in the United States, right, thinking about how the average American family has less than $8,000 in savings, I realize most families don't have 6 people in them, but let's say that you've got 4 people in your family and you're still going to spend, $700 on passports. That's a huge chunk of change. And that in and of itself is a barrier. And then thinking about whether or not you even want to go somewhere for the short term, how difficult are they going to make it when you try to get back in? I know if I leave the country for any travel, I will be using a burner phone. I don't want I know that there's a file on me, so I don't want the government trying to look in my phone or giving me grief. I anticipate if I leave the country that I'm going to get heck if I try and come back in. Judaism has 6 genders. Yeah, exactly. Okay. Boomer, never heard of unschooling. Thanks, y'all, for letting me jump around topics. Am I serious? Oh, would I seriously consider leaving the U.S.? No, I would not leave the U.S. If something happened to me, I would want there to be a pathway for my family to get out if it became not safe. But I'm not leaving. All the fascists can get the fuck out. This is my home. Okay. Okay. Sorry, there was a question about unschooling, and I missed it. I don't know how to scroll back in the chat. Ruth, do you want to talk about unschooling? Because I feel like I'm yapping a lot. Do you have thoughts about unschooling? Someone said they were new to the term, so do you want to define it?
Unschooling is, well, I understand the principle behind it is that children should be self-directed in their education, so you don't have a strict curriculum, and that there's emphasis in things that children are interested in learning on their own time have value. And so if a child is interested in learning about something, you're not going to be like, no, we're learning about this today. You'd be like, okay, let's learn about what you want to learn about. Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of rules for me growing up. The rules in our house were no Game of Thrones, no Insane Clown Posse. That's about it.
But now we like Insane Clown Posse.
That's true.
At the time, I just found them really annoying. That's true. I did say no. So sometimes, occasionally, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I do feel like we try and be non-authoritarian parents, and we try and let you make a lot of your own decisions. But I did kind of put my foot down a little bit with Game of Thrones because I found it so deeply upsetting and violent. For the age that you were at,
Yeah.
I did a little bit put my foot down. But you're 23 now, so
you said I could watch it once I got my driver's license.
Yeah, I did say if you got your driver's license, maybe you're old enough. Because I watched one episode of the show and I found it upsetting. So,
well, I didn't even want to watch it that bad, but I made a deal with my friend that if he watched Berserk, I would watch Game of Thrones, and he held up his end of the deal. Berserk is better though.
Yeah. So I think with unschooling, I think it very much ties into, well, how many times can I say I think in one sentence? It ties in very much to our parenting philosophy, our philosophy of the fact that we should live in a free society. I know I've said this before, but I think if you look at what my politics actually are on the scale, on the, what's that grid called? Sorry.
Political compass.
The political compass. I think people would classify me more as like a libertarian communist. Not that I'm a libertarian or a communist, but in terms of philosophy, I'm very much a believer in people being self-directed and having autonomy, respecting people's autonomy and agency, and that includes children. So that's sort of how we operate. I think the last year has really shaken that belief for me quite a bit, that people will make good decisions if you help them feel supported and they have good supported childhoods and they are able to access help to work through their trauma. But I don't know. I still think that
there's still hope for humanity.
I still think there's hope for humanity. Yeah.
A lot of it is nurture over nature.
Mm-hmm.
How people are socialized.
I think maybe a little bit different than anarchism. I do think that anarchism also appeals to me on some level. But then see, at the same time, I'm like, there's a difference between what I believe is like an ideal kind of society that I would want. Very much, obviously, I'm an idealist because I believe in permaculture, right? And I think, we could build a permaculture society. It's just that pesky capitalism in the way, right? So there's a difference between what my lofty ideals are versus my pragmatic actions in real life, which is probably why I would lean more toward like a democratic socialist in real life, in terms of my voting. So I just want to jump to this really quickly. The Voter Save Act hasn't been passed yet. It will require a passport or birth certificate that matches your driver's license to be able to vote. I think it's really important for people to contact their electeds, no matter what party they have representing them. It's a really, really important time to put your foot down about this, because we know that it'll be challenged in the courts if it passes, but that's going to be very slow. And I do think that there is utility in contacting your elected officials, especially if you get your group of friends, your local church group, your knitting group, your Indivisible group, your basketball team, and then they get all their friends and their coworkers. It's one thing to have 10 or 12 calls in a week, but if a member of Congress gets 1,000 calls in a week, they're much more likely to move on it the way that you want them to move. So it's that collective power. So for me, I'm always encouraging people, yeah, you want to call on this issue, but what you really want to do is put the word out to your social network, everybody that you know in your district, and have them all call the same day or within a group of 3 days. That's why phone banking is really useful for contacting members of Congress. Because then if their aide is like, I got 80 calls about this today, suddenly it's going to be moving up their list of priorities of things that they need to care about. Sorry, I'm chatting too much.
No, it's okay.
It won't pass. So the SAVE Act won't pass the filibuster in the Senate. That is a really good point. I am very concerned about Democrats in the Senate being able to hold the filibuster for fucking anything, right? That concerns me. I think that there's no way establishment Democrats are going to hold the line unless we hold them to the line, which is why I think it's more important than ever that we call them. Yeah. Sorry, I'm reading through your comments. Thank you all for all of the interaction. So should I be culturally married for 40 years and planning to return to my married name to ensure voting rights? We need protests to remove Democratic leadership. It's so frustrating to have to fight our own, I don't want to say our own party. I vote Democratic because there's no other option, right? I know we have an entrenched two-party system. And so it really is, for me, often hold my nose and vote, except with my Senator Jeff Merkley. I think Jeff's a real one. I love him. I think it's so frustrating that we don't have a cohesive opposition party, that we are having to fight fascism and we don't feel like we have comprehensive, coordinated allies within the government who are on our side. That is a significant hindrance, I think, to the movement. And it's why, not all why, but part of why they've been able to advance their agenda so quickly, is that there really is not much opposition in Congress that is meaningful. And I don't know how to overcome that other than to say, well, it's just more evidence of how deep the problem is in our government and how much reform we do need, and how it's up to us, the people, to be able to make those changes, because we don't actually have any saviors in government whatsoever. Okay, reading through other comments. Ruth, feel free to weigh in if I'm just yapping too much. Okay. What the hell is, Jim GYM Jordan doing heading that committee? I went to high school in Ohio, and Beaver Creek, Ohio. And one of my best friends still lives in Columbus. And we talk about Ohio a lot. What the fuck happened to Ohio? It's very, very gerrymandered, very corrupt. I think when you're looking at that scandal that has come out with that OBGYN being mentioned in the Epstein files, taking quarterly payments from Jeffrey Epstein, and the fact that the Ohio State Hospital complex is named after Waxner, and Jim Jordan has his own, abuse scandals. There's just so much. And JD Vance. Okay. Ohio is so frustrating to me how gerrymandered it is, because there's so many good people in Ohio, and the political landscape there seems abysmal. And I'm so sorry for people who live there. Jim Jordan is so corrupt. I asked a question earlier about organizing. Oh, thank you for asking again. Oh yeah, I saw your question, Eric. I asked a question earlier about the organizing necessary for when resistance is successful, like with the 1919 Winnipeg general strike. How do you feel the preparations are going? So I don't actually know enough about the Winnipeg general strike, but I do feel that the organization for a general strike in the United States, obviously I don't have insight to what the unions are doing on a level any further than my husband's union, right? Or what I'm hearing from local organizers. But I do think the linchpin for any effective general strike is going to be the organization of the unions. And we are seeing more and more and more mobilization of labor. So I think if we're talking about moving toward a general strike on any level, whether it is across the country, whether it's focused on one industry, whether it's geographically focused in one area, because I don't think the logistics of calling for a nationwide general strike are going to be that successful. I think that having labor involved is really, really important. And that's going to make all of the difference. And so we're seeing the success from the Minnesota Friday strikes and the way that people want to replicate that. And they're looking at what is working in Minnesota, and they're trying to figure out how they can build that out. To me, that seems like moving in the right direction. When we look at building capacity, starting in permaculture, we say slow, small solutions. You start small and you build your power. And it's very much the same with grassroots organizing. So Minnesota kind of blazing that trail, I think it gives people the courage and the perspective to be like, oh yeah, we could do this. How do we build this out and do the same thing where we are? So I think that I'm hopeful when it comes to general strikes or larger labor strikes. I've not seen anybody moving for something like collective rent strikes or a tax strike. So people talking about a tax strike, that is way, way above my pay grade. I know my accountant was like, don't do that. So other than that, I know that those are effective forms of civil resistance. But I haven't seen a lot of movement in that way. In terms of general strikes and boycotts, absolutely. We're a fan of books. Okay, I'm reading questions. Books before visuals is much preferred in our household. Thanks, y'all. I'm just reading comments. Okay. We try not to, so we don't have a TV. We haven't had a TV in 20-ish years. But we do have laptops, obviously, and we do watch things on the laptop. And then when my parents were alive, they had a giant TV because my dad was visually impaired. So to see, they had a giant TV, which is not what I had growing up. Growing up, we had a very small TV, and I was allowed 1 hour of PBS a week. And if I was really good and things went really well, sometimes I could watch Nova and Nature.
Which is basically what we did. When we had a TV, when we say we had a TV, we had a TV for like less than a year, and I could watch In Between the Lions.
PBS, yeah.
In Between the Lions, and sometimes Miami Gal.
Yeah. So when we would want to watch a movie, we would go hang out with my parents who lived a block away from us and watch it on their big screen. But we do have laptops. I'm not opposed to media. My kids will watch things, but when they were younger, we really tried to be pretty screen free, and I think that was good for them. But I don't necessarily have a hierarchy of visual media over not visual media, and I'm a huge fan of audiobooks. 2 of my kids are dyslexic, and we do a lot of audiobooking, a lot of podcasting.
Yeah. Everyone who says audiobooks do not count as reading, I say to them this. Then if you think it doesn't count, what do you think of what I do? Which is where I listen to the audiobook and I read it at the same time. Or I alternate back and forth. I'll do 1 chapter audiobook, 1 chapter physical book.
Do you think those
So does it half count? Did I only comprehend half the book?
Yes. You failed at reading.
Failed.
Do you think that goes back to how we used to do read-alongs from the library when you were little, where I would get the cassette tape and we would play it and you would read along and listen to a narrator reading it? You think that kind of sowed those seeds of liking to do both at the same time? Nobody else in this household does that, and I didn't do those read-along tapes with anybody else. The reason that I did them with you so much is because I had really bad morning sickness with your sister, and I would need to be like barfing, and I'd be like, how about, I know that you're 1.5, but how about you pretend that you're reading this book and listen to this cassette tape while I go blow chunks? You were reading by 3 really pretty well. Okay.
Reading by 2.
You were reading by 2, actually. You were really hyperlexic.
And fiction.
Yeah. Hi from Lincoln City. Hi. My 3rd kid was born in Lincoln City. They have a great kite festival. Okay. Putting out a resist. Okay. Thank you for reminding me. Thank you, Bombay. Okay. So someone asked me before if I would put out a resistance reading list, I think last week, and I haven't gotten around to it yet. I need to. This is the book I'm reading now. In the Indivisible leadership call earlier today, there was a shout out to Rebecca Solnit. Sorry, this is backwards. I'm reading A Paradise Built in Hell. It's all about community and organizing and building a better world in response to disasters, a lot of natural disasters and conflict. This is so good. Every book I've ever read of hers, so good. So I will definitely put together a list. I just gotta remember to do it. Okay.
Looks like a raw chicken.
It does look like a raw chicken. It's, it's in process. A lot of people talking about dyslexia in the chat. My dad was dyslexic, and I think my brother is as well, and 2 of my kids are. My dad made it through medical school because he was married to my mom, and she helped him read his textbooks and study and drilled spelling in for him. Otherwise, I don't think he would have made it through medical school. He was always a big fan of audiobooks. And he actually was the one who noticed that my 2nd kid was dyslexic way before I did, because Ruth learned to read on her own so early. I didn't understand why my 2nd kid was really having a difficult time learning to read and struggling to pronounce really, really simple words. And so he right away was like, oh, I'm pretty sure, sounds like me when I was a kid. So we are very big on audiobooks and also lots of expansive, accessible learning opportunities, talk to text. I'm a big fan of using tech responsibly, right? Not AI slop, but like you could use technology to give us a better quality of life instead of just making a bunch of rich people richer. Okay, somebody in the chat said, do I follow Tad Sturmer? He and I are mutuals on TikTok, and I do. I feel like Tad brings a different perspective than Heather Cox Richardson. There's a different focus of their study, and I don't necessarily always agree with either of them, but I appreciate the perspective that both of them bring. So for me, I don't necessarily feel like I have to be only mutuals with people that I agree with 100% of the time or think they have amazing takes all of the time. I feel like I'm learning a lot from historians, and so I want to follow historians as much as possible, because my education is in science, and I realize I have a dearth of understanding when it comes to history in many respects. So I want to listen to those experts. Same reason I follow a lot of attorneys. I'm not an attorney. and so that they can bring their expertise to bear. And I really appreciate that.
You told me to not let you go over an hour. It's been an hour. How long do you want to keep going?
You want to go for 10 more minutes? Does that sound good?
Sure.
I think TikTok will kick us off in 5, and that'll give, and so 10 total. Thank you for being on, Regan. Okay. Do you follow Joan Freeman? No, I don't. I'll have to look her up. I do need to read more history books. I think I need to add. Last year, I spent a long time. A lot of my reading focus was around the civil rights movement in terms of history, and then also in terms of studying resistance movements in Europe. And I need to read much more, I think, about South American resistance movements. Other than Chile, that's the only one I've read a lot about Chile. And also learning about more recent American history in terms of the dynamic in rural America. I think I need to lean into that even more. And also, I think it'd be good this year for me to go back and read more on the labor movement and kind of refresh myself on that. I think that it's a good time to understand the tactics and organizing and skills and effective strategies that the labor movement has used, because I think that's where we're going to get. That's where we're going to get the bulk of our power.
Someone said shout out to.
Oh, hi. Oh, my husband's in the chat. Hi, sweetie. He's going to head home from work soon. Okay. Hi.
Someone said shout out to Ursula K. Le Guin books.
Oh yeah.
Shout out to Patrick O'Brien. Does anyone read Patrick O'Brien books? I can't find anyone.
No, you can't find anybody here. It's Patrick O'Brien.
Only my father-in-law.
Only. Yeah. People might have seen Master and Commander though.
Probably.
For those who can't sleep. Okay, I do need to follow some more historians, so I appreciate people letting me know in the chat. My husband reads a lot of history books. Yeah, that's funny that he logged it. You know what? I bet he tried to call me and I had my ringer turned off. Okay, thanks, Case. I bought the crochet version of the Red Hat. Oh, awesome. I don't crochet. I can do a really simple edging on a hat or I can't crochet. My brain doesn't work that way. So mad props to people who can crochet. Oh, my husband's in the chat shouting up Umberto Eco. Yeah.
Shout out to
Name of the Rose. Also, he has a good book on fighting fascism because he grew up under a fascist regime. So
also Bellini was inspired by him.
Yeah.
Conklin.
Oh, thank you, TC Lou. Thank you. I try to be knowledgeable. I have a lot of gaps in my knowledge, and I'm trying to learn. And I think that's one of the things that I found so encouraging over the last year, how capable we are as a resistance movement of filling in all of those gaps, all of the ways that we were kind of shortchanged in our education, all of those voids that we've had. Like, oh, we can go back and learn all of those things that they didn't want us to learn about. And look how much more skillful and knowledgeable we can become in a very short period of time. That gives me a lot of hope. Yeah. Text to speech. Sorry to jump around subjects a little bit. Text to speech is really useful. I find it useful as somebody who's not dyslexic, but as somebody who works online all of the time. And if you follow me on Blue Sky, you'll see I have a lot of typos. My hands get really, I'm getting old and my hands really bother me, and texting really hurts them. So I use text, talk to text a lot. And then I'm chatting with friends. We often use voice memos, which I think is what the youth use quite a bit too. You guys use voice memos?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, me and my friends do. I don't know how common that is.
He does too. Did you go to Senator Merkley's town hall at Clackamas High School? No, I did not. I'm actually going to go to a thing with Senator Merkley coming up in a couple of days, but I did not go. Did you go to his town hall at Clackamas High School? I love Jeff. If I had to pick one elected official who I think has the most integrity and stands on the right side of history and consistently has takes that align with mine, it's Jeff Merkley. I appreciate that Ezra from Indivisible says he is too progressive to ever get selected as Senate leadership, that there's too many other mainstream corporate Democrats who would never put Jeff Merkley in leadership, but it'd be nice if he was. Yeah, I think he's a good guy. The red hats remind me very much. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think that's such a good point about red hats. first of all, I say red hat, and I mean the Norwegian melt the ice hats that everybody's making. I like to say red hat because I'm reclaiming it from the people who took red baseball caps and ruined it for every fan of
Limp Bizkit.
Limp Bizkit. I was gonna say Minecraft. Remember
Minecraft.
remember when Hal used to wear a red cap and he was being Steve or something? I don't remember. Maybe it's,
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay. So the red hats, thinking about the other symbols in history that have been so important and really iconic, and how we still like hold on to them now and think of them now. I know that people in a couple of the chats I'm in are talking about like, what is the symbol of the resistance? Oh, we're going to lose it in 5 minutes. What's the symbol of the resistance in Portland, Oregon? Because I guess folks in Minnesota put this bird symbol. And I think that we can want to intentionally craft a symbol, and it may or may not take. It may not become something that people coalesce around. I know in Oregon, the Protect Oregon folks want everybody to wear a yellow bandana as the symbol of resistance. And so you can recognize other people in a yellow bandana. And I haven't really seen that take off at all. So sometimes we try things, we try to cultivate a symbol and attach meaning to it. And sometimes it takes off and sometimes it doesn't. And that's okay. And I think that it's difficult to predict what will and won't catch. Yeah, like the frog, right? Exactly. Like the Portland frog, or the melt the ice hats, or I know a lot of people use the monarch butterfly as a symbol for immigrants being welcome. And I think it's good. It's good to try things and they don't all work. It's good to try and put out a symbol or an idea and see what takes and what doesn't. And if 1 or 2% of the things we try work, that's okay. And we learn from our failures and we can adapt and tweak and try something new. I think that's true, not just in terms of symbols, but in terms of actions, resistance actions that we take. Oh, here we go. We got, you know, block this Ku Klux Klan member in my comments. Okay. Yeah. A lot of people in Canby are wearing the Portland frog. I've seen a lot of people with frog buttons and also frog umbrellas. Those are both really popular. I see so many people knitting the red hat or crocheting the red hat. I got to go get some yarn, you guys. I got to get some yarn. I got the pattern. I saw that it's adjustable and you can use varying weights of yarn. I'll probably try and we'll see what yarn's available at the shop. Sport weight, probably sport weight. Yeah. People using yellow butterflies. People dropping frogs. What do I do for yarn? Okay, I talked about this a little bit ago. People give me yarn. They give me their odds and ends from other projects. Same thing with fiber. People just give me bags of fiber. If you tell people, if you make knitting and spinning a significant part of your personality, it's amazing how quickly people will just give you their cast off fiber. I only knit with natural fiber. I'm very much a snob, so I won't knit with acrylic yarn. But if I do have to go to the yarn shop, there are a couple local yarn stores that I like. I really like Cascade 220 yarn because it felts nicely. And then I really like Malabrigo. Those are my 2 favorite yarn brands. But rarely do I buy yarn. I usually spin it or people give it to me. Or here in Portland, there is a bookstore called Backstory Books, which sells, I don't say used yarn. What's the word I'm looking for? Gleaned yarn. So I've knitted a lot of things from yarn I bought from Backstory Books. Oh my gosh. No, please don't send me yarn. That's super lovely of you. That's really lovely.
I have no shortage.
Yes, I have. See if somebody in your local community could use the yarn. Maybe somebody you know.
Facebook Buy Nothing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Ask your Facebook Buy Nothing group. That's very sweet of you. I know people ask if they can send me packages of things, and I'm good, you guys. Thank you. That's so lovely. I would prefer everybody see what they can do locally. What can you do locally to help out people that live right where you are? I'm doing okay. I promise you, of all of the people in the United States who need help and support, it's not social media influencers. We're doing okay. All of us are doing okay. Oh, thank you. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm reading comments. I'm all for Melanie Stansbury. Okay, for the last couple of minutes here before it kicks us off, I think TikTok will kick me off really quickly. When we're looking at what members of the Democratic Party are actually functioning as members of the resistance, are actually like, expending political capital and using their platform and their power to stand on the right side of history and to stand for democracy. Melanie Stansbury has really stood out to me lately because she's in New Mexico. I didn't really know that much about her. I think I maybe gave her a hard time last year for the State of the Union because she was one of those reps who wore pink. And I was like, okay, what's this doing? Why are you guys walking out? Why isn't everybody, when Al Green got kicked out, why didn't everybody stand up and walk out with him? Every Democrat should have stood up and walked out with Al Green. But I think she's done a tremendous job since then. I've seen a number of members of Congress who have really found their courage and are standing up to leadership on a regular basis and choosing to do the right thing, who understand how dire it is. I think Pramila Jayapal is another one. I have a kid come in here. Hi. Yeah, I think there's a number of members of Congress who are doing the right thing. And so I don't want to paint too broad of a brush and say all Democrats, Democratic leadership, establishment Democrats, they're the problem. But there are a number of members of Congress who are trying to do the right thing. And we need all of them to be moving in the ways that Ayanna Pressley is moving. And right, like we need more of them to find their courage and to do the right thing. Al Green is a real one. I totally agree. I'm still mad a year later that every single Democrat did not stand up and walk out with him.
They're right where they want to be.
They are right. This is what Ruth says about the Democrats all the time. They're right where they want to be. I think that's a good reminder.
That's why they exist.
Yeah, it's a good reminder.
That's on your sweatshirt. Mine is zebras. Yours is internet comment etiquette zombie. He sent me this for free, by the way.
This is
a lovely guy.
This is internet comment etiquette with Eric. Ruth and B and I make up 95% of his female fan base. He's a YouTuber. He's also a real one.
He saved me and B from the alt-right pipeline when we were in middle school.
Mm-hmm. He's pretty funny, very irreverent, and he's really catching and saving like 14-year-old boys from falling down the alt-right pipeline, especially like 5-7 years ago when YouTube was the major conduit for young boys to get radicalized for the alt-right. Eric would put out content that seemed like he might be.
He has very immature humor. So he's meeting teenagers where they're at, teenage gamer, edgy boys. Mm-hmm. But instead of like pushing alt-right ideas, he is like showing common sense, like pointing out the absurdity in alt-right talking points and the absurdity in conspiracy theories, and sort of like getting the youth to a place where they're like, yeah.
He thinks he's drawing them in with like rhetoric that makes it sound like he might be kind of an alt-right person, and then he's bringing them around and showing them the foolishness of their positions. Eric used to be a writer, right, on Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Yes.
So it's that kind of humor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of like South Park humor, but with good messages.
Someone said, can I ask if you are planning anything new for the garden? I miss the days when MTV had music and Progress and Permaculture. Oh, me too.
Someone's like, you say who? Internet comment etiquette.
Internet comment etiquette with Eric.
Mm-hmm.
You can also look up Eric Salvia because he became famous on the internet for
driving tutorials on Salvia.
He would get high as balls on Salvia and then post it on the internet. He's now in his 40s. So yeah. Internet comment etiquette. So I am planning some new things for my garden. I'm in the middle of just starting to build a studio in the backyard that I can work from. And I said this earlier in the live, that means I've ripped out some plants. And so I'm moving some things around in the garden, and I'm definitely going to be making some changes this year. More like structural changes and moving some of the orchard from the west side of the yard over to the east side of the yard. So that's definitely a project. So the yard is a lot of mud right now and a lot of things that have been dug up. General chaotic mess. Okay. This is a good point to make, is that we have to live our lives while we're fighting fascism, and all of the small struggles are still going on. So one of the things we've been talking about in my local organizing groups is how do we feed people? There's growing concern about how we feed folks. And I think in the before times, right, like we have a free farm stand and people worked in my garden, I donated a ton of produce. I would think about growing tomatoes or growing especially fruit crops, right? Fruit is expensive. Kids like fruit. I think the most good that I can do now is just donate revenue that I earn, right? Because I can earn far more making content than I can, than growing like persimmons. I feel like that's a better use of my time. Not that I won't still grow and donate persimmons, but I think that when we are really focusing on mutual aid and caring for our neighbors, that feeding people is a significant component of that. And it's going to become more and more so over the next year, especially as we're looking at immigrants who are afraid to go to the grocery store. How can we make sure that they get fed? What about immigrants in our communities who used to do food deliveries or have a food cart? Portland has a lot of food carts. Not everybody in those food carts feel safe going to work right now. People who own food carts don't feel safe cooking food and being in public and running their business. And that means they're losing revenue and they have skills that they could be lending. So how do we help give them work and they can help feed people, right? These are the kind of mutual aid organizing efforts that I think are going to be really, really important. It gets very, very basic. In a fascist regime, we have to fight all of the systemic problems and then care for all of the immediate emergent needs. A post-market design for a true economy, integral. This is something that, I don't know if I posted this video already. It might be one I'm posting later today. I can't keep track of what I posted. Talking about the three components of civil resistance, where you have symbolic actions, which are things like honking waves or no King's Day or wearing a button, right? Signs of solidarity. You have symbolic actions, you have mass non-cooperation actions. And that is obviously like labor strikes or huge boycotts or, tax strikes. Or another act of non-cooperation is that everybody understands what jury nullification is, or declining to indict. Look at yesterday, we had all of these members of Congress, 6 members of Congress, the grand jury, 0 members of the grand jury voted to indict them because they didn't break the law. So that's kind of non-cooperation with the regime on a mass level. And then the third component is building alternatives. So we're really good at symbolic actions. We're learning how to level up and do acts of mass non-cooperation. We also need building alternatives at the same time. And that can look like members of Congress have done their shadow docket, like shadow hearings that they've had that have gotten very little coverage in the press. It can look like mutual aid groups feeding people. It can look like thinking about what the economy would look like going forward and laying the foundations for the expectation of what we want in the future. So when I think about the mutual aid networks that we're building, how could we do the entire economy differently, right? We know that the system is not meeting our needs at all. What's happening right now is exacerbating all of the realities that have been there the whole time so that they're so overt and so in our face. Okay, it's really, really not working for us. So what alternate structures can we build? What are the alternatives that we need to be thinking about, speaking publicly about, setting the expectation for, and then can we implement them on a small scale in any way to meet those needs locally? Super, super important component. And I think it's also good for our morale, right? We're not just stopping the fascists. What kind of America do we want? We have to stop the bad guys and then also understand that something has to come afterward, or we end up with a power vacuum, or we end up with another tin pot dictator, right? So we need to set the expectation and start planning for the America that we want after this. What other channels do I follow for resistance info? Democracy Now! Is a big one. I'm a big fan of Democracy Now! I do follow Mark Elias and Democracy Docket as well. I understand that Mark is the lawyer for the DNC, so I think he's also doing incredibly important good work. Those are 2 big ones that I follow on a daily basis. I don't actually have that much time to watch other YouTubers right now. I tend to follow a lot of attorneys and journalists on Blue Sky, and then listen to their kind of analyses and go to their Substacks, etc. I don't have a ton of time to actually watch footage. I do watch Harry Litman though. I watch Harry Litman all the time. He's probably one of my favorite attorneys on here. You mentioned we need to focus on planning for a future after the current state we're in. Absolutely. I totally think Zateo is also another good one. Thank you. And Dropsite News. Thank you. Okay. I definitely like Zateo. Also, Joy Reid. I watched Joy Reid's podcast. Okay. What kind of future do you want to have? One of the things that Timothy Snyder talks about a lot is that the people who decide what the future of the nation will look like are the people who are involved in resistance work right now. that gives me some hope, because Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are not involved in resistance work. So they don't get a voice in what the future of this country looks like, right? History shows us the people who do the resistance work and emerge as leaders of the resistance, they get to shape what the future looks like. And I find that so encouraging. Hi, Purple is Fruit. We are talking about building alternative systems. So what is it that is not working right now in our country? And while we are resisting fascism, and while we are engaged in non-cooperation, we also have to plan for the future that we want. And what would give us healthcare for all, right? What would it look like to have an end to Citizens United? What would it look like to tax the rich and to focus our policy agendas on working class people and a good quality of life for us? What would it look like to have privacy protections? What would it look like to use AI for something that benefits us and doesn't just drive people out of work and create a bubble in the economy where billionaires get really rich, and then AI ends up being useful for nothing except enriching themselves and making poor? So sorry, Ruth. I'm totally. You're. Feel free to interrupt me. You know how I get going.
How much longer do you want to go?
Well, we're over already, and I don't know why. TikTok Live keeps saying it's going to cut me off, and then it lets me go. So I must like me. I do think I probably need to go work on dinner. So, are you guys okay if we wrap it up? That's 20 minutes longer than I said I was going to be on. So thank y'all for letting us chat with you and needle felt and hang out. I do have a couple more videos. Coming out today. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the chat. Thank you. Thanks everybody for being here. I'll try and do another live later this weekend. I hope y'all have a good holiday weekend. It's President's Day weekend. There's protests all over the place. There's a knitting protest Saturday morning in Portland at the PSU Farmers Market. There's multiple protests. There's one in Gresham. So see if there's any way you can go connect with other people and exercise that agency and feel connected to other people. Okay, I'm going to hop off YouTube, and you want to do TikTok?
Yeah, okay. Sure. Thank you for coming, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for hanging out with us. We'll be back soon.